Let's get started. Continue straight. In 200 meters, turn right.
In order to take a pulse of what the road is in 2018, Bella and I thought we would use one of the most modern and widespread technologies we have at our disposal, Uber. This app on our smartphones allows us to hail a driver at any point in the city at any time of the day. Uber drivers, as we found, are often quiet sages. Their job is one predicated on conversation and observation, so we figured that these would be some great encounters, which they were. Our first driver was a man named Anis and Norberto. He took us from the plateau down to St. Catherine, and on that journey, Anis answered our questions enthusiastically.
Most people, when they come in the car and then as soon as you say hi, how was your day, they start just playing with their phone all the way, and they forgot there is another person. All this technology now keeping people all distracted, you know.
Yeah. No,
and not focused with anybody around.
We had set out with the basic hypothesis that people were generally less connected on the road and to one another with the ubiquity of technology. Although Anis lamented this as well, he also expressed a sense of wonder with regard to his clientele.
If I had a map on me, I would make everybody put a pin where they come from, probably it would fill the whole planet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
At this point, we reconsidered the Uber as a space of communion rather than isolation. Albeit ephemeral, within this car, people from all corners of the globe can have an encounter, a connection. This goes back to Bakhtin, who viewed the road as a place wherein social distances and class distinctions collapse. In addition to its being a space of communion, the Uber also signifies a new way of working in our day and age. Like Zampano, we found that Anis took pleasure in the fact that he worked on the road.
Yeah, this is my business now, you know. This is like work for me. This is my office. I spend most of the time driving during the day, and I feel like I'm working from home sometimes.
Turn left.
For the next leg of our journey, we hopped out of the Uber to walk along one of Montreal's busiest streets amidst the annual Christmas hubbub. Masses of people walked along St. Catherine, some with their heads down, preoccupied with their devices and oblivious to their surroundings. Others were there on the road talking, connecting. We saw this especially with families with their young children. As was found in our interviews, it's foolish to make any sweeping statements as to whether or not we still connect. The question is, as we're all plugged into our technology, can we remain present, en route? In 2018, do there remain any spaces which are off the grid? The sun had set, and we hailed an Uber from the west side of campus back to the plateau. Our driver was a Venezuelan man called Norberto, a retired architect who moved to Montreal 7 years ago to seek a new livelihood. He's been an Uber driver for 2.5 years, or 9,000 rides. We first discussed Norberto's experience as a driver. It didn't take long to notice and admire his astute and intelligent perspective on technology, the city, and the social interactions he had shared on the road.
Let me tell you, I've experienced very much the city because I'm very sensitive to the urban scene, both from an architectural point of view, from a social point of view. So in my case, it has not disconnected me. On the contrary, I would say it has connected me.
About halfway through the drive, Norberto missed a turn and decided to let the smartphone take a back seat for the sake of our conversation.
I'm going to cancel it because we've been around. Can you lead me? Can you guide me to get to your destination?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Norberto's relationship with his riders was different than that of Anis. He seemed to place more value in the intellectual enrichment which could come from these ephemeral interactions.
Having a relationship, conversation with your riders also moves you intellectually, you know? It's a chance, an opportunity for you and for the riders to bring out their intellectual curiosity.
Nearing the end of our trip, Norberto told us one last story which was very enlightening with regard to the fortuitous crossing of paths that the space of the Uber could provide.
On the way to the airport, in that conversation came out the fact that I am an architect, the fact he was coming from the States, and I told him I had lived in the States because I went to college. I went to college in Texas. This gentleman knew a friend of mine, or somebody who was my friend, while I went to college in Houston in the early 70s. I don't know how we got to talk about this guy. This guy was an architect who was developing a lunar colony when he was doing his thesis, and then he ended up working for NASA. You can imagine, he knew a person that I knew and I hadn't seen since 1975.
So, after our experience on the road, Bella and I reflected on what it had all meant. To answer with another question, who's to say? What we encountered both supported and went contrary to our initial cynical hypothesis. Above all, we found that what matters most in this moment is our choice. The choice to be aware or to be distracted, to look up at a face or down to our phone. We found the road in 2018 to be as rich as it ever was. The only difference is that it exists on two planes, the digital and the material. Neither is more real necessarily, as connection is still there, out there, only waiting for us to find it.
You have reached your destination.